Hello and welcome to the Global Fleet Voices video series produced by Automotive Fleet magazine. And this video series is designed to put a spotlight on key leaders in multinational fleet management. And today I have the honor to interview Ralph Vessel, Senior Manager, Global Fleet for Agvo Corporation, on how fleet professionals can gain more in-depth knowledge of the global fleet management profession and expand their network of peers and become greater subject matter experts in their area. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Ralph, for joining us.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
You're quite welcome. And this is an area that I think is really important. It's this whole area of continuous education because, you know, regardless of what profession you're in, you have to continually educate yourself. And what's so hard about our profession is there's so few resources out there, especially when you start getting specialized in managing multinational fleets. So with that, I'm wondering, how do you deal with this idea of continuing education, and could you expand on this topic for us?
Very interesting question, Mike. When I look back at my history with AGCO, when I initially took on the responsibility of the global fleet, it seems everything was easy and would be easily implemented, but then I had to learn very quickly that there's very difference between the individual countries, regions, based on taxation, employee benefit, and so forth. So as first, you have to do a lot of education to yourself. And one of the major resources in all of this then is, of course, existing structures of fleet companies and global suppliers, which can help you understand a lot of the issues you have to face. So, and then, of course, as government subsidies or government mandates for greener fleets are continuously changing, this is one of the things where you have to always be up to date and continue to educate yourself and making sure you have the right things in front of you to make the proper decisions.
It's absolutely true. And there's so few publications or books that you can turn to. In many cases, you really have to rely on peer-to-peer discussions, and the best place to do that seems to be at conferences. And because at conferences you're looking at people from a number of different areas, it kind of parallels what you do in your profession because you're constantly working with cross-functional groups in different regions. You're managing corporate assets or collaborating on complex technology initiatives, all of which are part and parcel of managing a multinational fleet. So what advice would you give the fleet managers on how to effectively manage this process on a multinational basis?
The biggest thing for me and value to this job is to make sure you understand not one size fits all. There's variations between the different countries and regions, and you need to make sure that you engage your local stakeholders to make a clear definition of what's needed. The key is to support the job functions individually. For example, a pickup truck in North America is not equal to a passenger wagon over in Europe. There's differences, and you need to make sure before you just develop a program and try to emphasize a policy or to implement policies, you need to make sure you understand the local requirements. Again, green fleets, another big thing in Europe, they're further advanced than we are. You need to make sure you understand all these obstacles and integrate them to make sure you have A, employee satisfaction, and B, government mandates are met.
Yeah, and the other issue with managing a multinational fleet is, you're dealing with these large cross-sectional groups, but also it's very dangerous in the sense that you could become very insular in your outlook and miss some of the best practices that are out there. And that's where I really think the importance is networking with your peers. I mean, networking with colleagues is great and necessary and invaluable, but networking with peers is invaluable, especially peers from differing regions. What venues do you find best for multinational fleet managers to have this peer-to-peer networking?
So Mike, interesting question. The biggest value to me for the last 12 years since I have worked in Global Fleet has been the Global Fleet Conference. You have a chance to meet global suppliers, right? You have everybody there in one room, in one venue. You can collaborate with other fleet managers who have equal challenges, right? Challenges you are facing today, they may have had a solution for that 2 years ago. You find contacts with global fleet companies which can enable you to make sure that you leverage all cost advantage and service advantages to make sure you make an educated decisions on who is going to be your partners. So for me personally, over the last 12 years, the Global Fleet Conference was the best.
Very good. And but you touched upon a good point there. It's not only your peers, but it's also, your suppliers and leveraging those supplier relationships to help harmonize your fleet practices around the world. Again, would you use a conference such as the Global Fleet Conference on facilitating that process and developing those supplier relationships?
Mike, I cannot tell you how many successful relations I have built with suppliers at the Global Fleet Conference, right? I have met people all across the globe right there in one venue, and we have had very successful starting the relationship, following up, developing contract negotiations, key account keynotes, and so forth. Global Fleet Conference always has been a very, very good venue for me to build these relationships.
Very good. And that's coming up soon. I think it's October 26th through 28th in Miami, Florida. I know you'll be there, and we're looking forward to it. But we've reached our allotted time for our discussion now. It's a great discussion. This whole area of continuous education is critical in order to be a successful multinational fleet manager. But with that, I'd like to thank you, Ralph, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Mike, and I'm looking forward to see everybody in Miami.